Hey guys, welcome back to the Conjured Warren. Today we're going to go into chapter 2 of Memories of Ice. Now, I think it's quite important today to go into the poem before we go into my reaction. So, the poem starts off by saying, "Neither Dujek nor Brood, nor anyone else among their legendary company could have anticipated the ensuing clash, not of swords, but of worlds." Now, guys, that makes me think, okay. I feel like the Panian Daemon is not the main enemy here. It'll be like StarCraft, where initially, Terrans, the humans are fighting each other, but then after that, crazy stuff happen. The Zerg invade, the Protoss, who are supposed to be like these demigods, get involved in the fray. So that's what, I think is going to happen. But still, I'm excited to see the Panian Daemon conflict because, it's kind of cool. It's more grounded. So I think it'll be really cool. But I wonder if the poem refers to the Jagat and Tlan Imas wars, or if we're going to go full Warcraft and even those races will have to combine with the humans and the other races to fight an even bigger threat, which could be the crippled god. But, it says there's a clash of worlds. So is the crippled god in another world? I mean, they're all just connected by warrens, so I'm not sure. But perhaps the crippled god will go to some other evil, dark dimension and bring a bunch of bad guys over from there. But let's see. And, I don't even know if I see the crippled god as a bad guy necessarily right now. I mean, like I said, he got his ish wrecked by a bunch of random summoners, a bunch of little human summoners. So who wouldn't be mad? But anyways, let's go straight into the scene. Now, we start off by seeing the mhybe of the Rivi. And I was a little confused when they first started just using the word mhybe. I was like, what is that? But for better or less, that's the name of the woman here. I think she just named herself. And usually the word mhybe refers to like some sort of container or shell that the Rivi use. But she is a young, unmarried woman who hasn't had the touch of a man. But she happened to give birth to this mysterious young child. And we know that it's due to some sort of magic or spirits. And she thinks to herself, hey, I was probably a prime target for spirits. She was not touched by a man, and she also had her parents' death. So it doesn't explain why her parents' death would make her a more likely target for spirits, but maybe because she's alone and she's experienced emotional torment and, trauma, it makes her a good match for it. But anyways, this child, it said, was created by the Tlan Imas within a warren, bound by two Malazan mages, and also either made by or mixed with a soletaken and a bone caster. So this young child has the best of everything. If she were a video game character, everybody would want to play her. She would be like that max build, max spells, just everything maxed out. Come on, Malazan mages, you got the good guy, plot armor with that. You got a soletaken. Those guys are crazy we saw in book 2. They turn into like crazy, creatures and, they just go crazy. And also a bone caster. I don't even know what a bone caster is. For me, I think either a necromancer or one of those orc shamans in Diablo. That's the image I get. I feel like they look like an orc shaman in Diablo, but they're mentioned a lot. So I assume that they have really powerful magic. But anyways, the mhybe eventually meets with Korlot, who's a tiste andii, and I think we met her in Gardens of the Moon. She was one of the higher level foot soldiers. She was like a lieutenant. And we also meet Silverfox. And as we'll find out, Silverfox is a very important character. But anyways, Silverfox, the child, freaks Korlot out. She's very scared of her for some reason, which is interesting because when I think of the Tiste Andii, I think of them as like the dark elves that we saw in Diablo, or like the land elves, I think they were. Usually the elves are very wise, very all knowing, so they're not scared of much. But if she's freaked out by Silverfox, something's going on. Now, we finally get the military meeting with this unlikely alliance. We have the former Malazan group, Dujek One Arm's military group. We also have Caladan Brood's group. And I think there are a few other groups like the Rivi and a few small alliances that were made. Oh, there's also the Tiste Andii. Now, the first to coolly enter the scene are Dujek and his squad. So we have Dujek, Whiskeyjack, and a guy called Artanthos. And I think Silverfox can tell that he's not who he portrays himself to be. So, I don't know, he's another mysterious, really strong OP guy, I guess. And what I thought when I heard that is, man, I mean, Dujek is really lucky. He always has all these like really amazing, powerful, or smart people next to him. But that's also probably because Dujek is very capable. That's his strength, his ability to bring in and lead really capable people. Now, it eventually reveals slight hints that Silverfox is someone that we know. That Silverfox is Tattersail. Now, as soon as she sees Whiskeyjack, she says, "Uncle." So that's really cool to me because I don't think Tattersail ever explicitly called Whiskeyjack uncle. But now we know that she saw him as an uncle figure, which is very heartwarming. That's very cool. I like how she had that much trust in him, even though I don't think they were family or anything. Now, next, we see Caladan Brood's squad come in. Now, it's so cool to finally see him because I don't think we've ever seen him thus far. I remember in the first book when part of the group is saved by Caladan's group. I don't think Caladan Brood was actually there. We just keep getting references to him. But he comes in, and I thought he'd be tall, but I think he'd be more like a slim, like ripped guy. But they say he's like hulking. He's really tall and big. He's part Barghast, so he's really big. And his weapon is an iron hammer. Man, an iron hammer. You wouldn't want to fight that in battle. But here's the crazier thing. Who was next to Caladan Brood? Kallor, the High King, or Kallor. Is he the Kallor from the prologue? Because how did he end up a guy who had a whole empire, who had 3 elder gods scared of him, and being featured in the freaking prologue to just being some guy's right-hand man? Now, don't get me wrong, that's really impressive. But compared to who he was before, it's like he was the ruler of the world to just being a sergeant or something like that now. So I don't know how that happens, but he hates Silverfox. He hates Silverfox, and he thinks someone or something is hiding within her. So that makes me think, is there a Tlan Imas in Silverfox that existed back in the day where Kallor's empire existed or ended? From the way that Kallor talks about her, I feel like he had someone, Silverfox used to be someone who was a, soldier for Kallor, who was an advisor to Kallor, but then somehow betrayed him. I don't feel like they're going to end up hating each other the entire time, but I think there's going to be some sort of understanding or reconciling between the two. I think there's some huge misunderstanding because he just really hates her, but she doesn't seem to hate him back. But now, when they all meet, there's some really, really cool, funny dialogue. Now, part of Caladan Brood's hired military group are a group called the Mott Irregulars. And now, Whiskeyjack is very familiar with the Mott Irregulars because Whiskeyjack used to fight Caladan Brood's army. And basically, when they refer to the Mott Irregulars, they do it because Whiskeyjack comes in and he sees a familiar table. This table was their own table that Fiddler made. How did it end up in Caladan Brood's hands? Well, the Mott regulars would regularly go to Malazan places, steal their stuff, and just leave. Apparently, their specialty is logistics. So that's really cool. I love when series kind of highlight not the main fighters, but other really useful niche groups. That tells you, like, that just makes it really cool. I don't know about you guys, but I hope we see the mod irregulars. I hope we see them do some cool stuff. But they also mention the Darujistan Agreement. So, we've had hints of the Darujistan Agreement towards the end of Deadhouse Gates. And if you're here, you probably read Deadhouse Gates. We see that Darujistan, there's some merchant guy who just teleports everywhere. So I think that was part of the agreement. But did I miss something? Because, what has Whiskeyjack done for the Darujhistan people that they would be happy to ally themselves with them? I guess it's because Whiskeyjack has now left the Malazan Empire, and Darujhistan has an interest in allying themselves with them as well as Caladan Brood to protect them against the Malazan Empire, or maybe to protect them against the Panian Daman. I guess they knew that they were the bigger threat. Which makes me think, is the Panian Daman just as big as the Malazan Empire? I didn't think there was any empire as big as the Malazan Empire. One, because the book is called Malazan, and that's what it made it seem like. But they're making the Panian Daman seem really, really big and powerful. Just as big or bigger of a threat than Malazan. So I guess we'll see. Now, one really cool thing. We see Crone at the tent area. Yes, our favorite great raven, Crone. Now, she's back. I hope she sticks around, forever. But silverfox says something really, really interesting. She says that the great ravens were born from the rotting flesh of... And then she gets cut off by Crone. And then Crone's like, hey, be careful what you share for your own safety. Don't tell everybody about where I'm from. It's bad for your own safety. But silverfox has she has a mouth on her. She's like, is it for my safety or yours? So we find out that the great ravens were born from the rotting flesh of the crippled god. So I think they're just concerned if people find out, if Anomander Rake finds out, how will they perceive us if we're from this crippled god? So, more people than I thought knew about this crippled god. But it's interesting. First of all, this crippled god must be this really, really powerful guy if his rotting flesh, gives birth to these really crazy, powerful ravens. And we learn about part of the crippled god's powers. That's to devour magic. That is just perfect for this world because so many people use magic. So if you can absorb magic and make yourself more powerful, that's really useful. But now we go inside and we go to the next human conflict, which is Kapustan. Now, Kapustan is another city. I think it's located down south, and there was also a map of it at the front of the book. And I think Kapustan is significant because it's next to a river and a crossing. And that's a vital river and crossing, of which, if they have control of that, they can transport their troops across and basically supplies and all that. So that's why they're discussing it. Now, they think the Panian Daman is going to come through there and basically take it over. Okay? And I think Kapustan is basically neutral right now. They're not on anyone's side. They're just an independent city. Now, they're discussing everything, and they say that the Panian Daman is partially run by this peasant army. There's called the Teniscari. And guys, this peasant army is not one you'd want to run into because they are literally cannibals. They take over, and because Caladan Brood, not Caladan Brood, because the seer does not feed them or properly supply them, I guess they feel desperate, so they need to eat whatever they can, and part of who they eat are the ones that they take over. Now, Here's some more cool stuff that I really, really wanted to see. They discuss the internal politics of Kapustan. Now, Kapustan's government and ruling body is made up of the prince and the surrounding councils. I think they are religious councils. So here in Kapustan, the government is has a royalty and religious bodies that make up the power. Now, right now, Kapustan does not want to get taken over by the seer. So the prince is trying to amass an army, but the laws prevent him from having more than a certain amount of army. So to circumvent this, he hired someone called, I think it was the Gray Swords. He hired basically a mercenary camp. So I guess if they're mercenaries and they're independent contractors, they're not really part of his army. At the same time, the council, these religious council, want to they want to put down the prince's power. So they like to keep him in check by not letting him get more of an army. They also think, hey, do they want to get rid of the prince in the midst of this coming conflict? And it seems like some of them think, no, not necessarily, but they would like to kind of put a clamp down on his power. So this goes to show that maybe just surviving against the Gray Swords is not the only goal, but there's going to be some shenanigans going on. But you know what makes it so cool? Whiskeyjack thinks already. He's like, okay, if we go there right now, they might not even be friendly to us at Kapustan. We need preliminary contact. And what does that make me think? That makes me think we're not necessarily only going to have all-out war, all-out battle, much like Deadhouse Gates was, but we're going to have some covert operations, some covert missions. That's really cool to me. I like seeing that. So, yeah, we'll see. But Silverfox points out that, Whiskeyjack, that's a classic Malazan tactic. Doing things indirectly and covertly. And that's kind of a surprise to me. I guess by now I shouldn't be surprised, but usually when you think sprawling big empire, I think that, these empires just take over everything with brute force and overwhelming power, but that's not how the bridge burners did it. So that's really cool. Now, there's some more back and forth with Kallor and Silverfox. He just hates her. He fears her. And Whiskeyjack gets pissed and he slaps the heck out of him for threatening a child. I feel like no one there truly understands where Kallor is coming from. I feel like he went through some bad things that is making him really hate her. Not that it's justified to hate on this child, but I feel like he's heavily misunderstood and no one really knows or cares where he's coming from. But who knows? I feel like a lot of people wouldn't have sympathy for him, but I do feel like there's some sort of root of where this utter hate is coming from. Also, Kallor calls her a bone caster. So that's what makes me think, what? How? I thought she was just a mix of tattersail and I think it was night chill. So I don't know. But Silverfox basically says, the Tlanimas are coming and you guys will need them. So again, it's hints towards this great big war. I have no idea where this war is going to go. But, eventually we go outside and we see Crone thinking to herself. And we find out once again that the great ravens are born from the rotting flesh of the crippled god. And she's scared. She has an internal struggle. She's like, what if my master finds out about this? Would it matter that we saved everyone? Would anything matter? That's sad that they have to think that. But I wonder if the crippled god could turn the great ravens into his minions because it's his flesh. Now, when we close out the chapter, they say, okay, Silverfox is now melded by Tattersail and Nightchill. But where did Bellard and Soul go? Okay, I don't know if it was Bellard and Soul or if it's just Bellard and himself. I don't remember if he died. I don't think he died. I feel like he was chasing Tattersail and they both went into like a warren or something like that. So if anything, I think he might still be alive. But if he went into one of those crazy warrens, what if he comes back out? But the question is he a good guy or is he a bad guy? I forgot. There are no good guys or bad guys. They're just different sides. So is he on the bridge burner side or is he going to fight them? I think it would be cool if he came back as a powerful character with some extra abilities or something like that later on. But anyways, guys, this chapter was super cool. My favorite parts were talking about Kapustan and their internal politics. I feel like you can make a whole book just on that. I also liked different aspects of hearing about the Mott irregulars and the different logistics of the army. And I hope the Moranth gets some light, in the future too. I feel like they're really useful and cool, but no one really talks about them. But anyways, guys, that was my reaction to this chapter. What did you think? I don't know if I got everything right. I think I'm finally getting into the groove of how the writing in the book is because I'm starting to really understand certain things. I do oftentimes have to reread a lot of portions of the book to be able to articulate it well enough to talk about it here. But I hope we can have some good discussions, and I hope to see you soon. Bye.